to get at the 11th hour that really everyone had already acknowledged was going to be cancelled.
It is interesting. The point really, to me, is that it would have been easy as the real estate company, easy for Dean to just say, well, look, you guys, you got to figure this out. You say to the seller, go figure it out. He has no clue how to do it. So the option is everybody hires an attorney, and all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 attorneys, and we did have an attorney that helped with it. But if you, like Dean said, you become the person that's calming the nerves, trying to settle everyone down. The buyer still wants to buy the property, realistically, seller still wants to sell. So how do we make it happen? Well, if you don't step up and spend every hour of every waking day for 2 or 3 days or a week or 10 days, whatever it took, there'd be no deal. And there's so many things that we end up doing like that nobody appreciates. I mean, there are real estate companies that might just say, look, nothing we can do, they're just going to go on to the next deal, and in which case the deal does cancel. But the true professionals step up and really help you work through what it's going to take to make the transaction close. So again, there's a number of things like that. Years ago, I was telling Dean, we had a property that just getting ready to close, we realized that the sewer wasn't hooked up. We thought it was. So we had plumbers or whatever it was going to take, the county, all set to hook the sewer up, but we needed to get a ditch dug. Now, if you wander around, the seller was working, the buyers, all they wanted, they weren't going to buy it unless the sewer was hooked up, and we couldn't find anyone to dig a ditch. Well, I'll tell you, finally, if I started digging, everybody started digging. So when I finally took a shovel and just started trying, the seller showed up at home and he started helping. Everyone from our office came over, and then we finally did get one real worker that would come. But we got the ditch dug, and they got the sewer hooked up within a couple of days. But there's so many things that go on like that, don't you think, Dean? I mean, it's over and over.
Yeah, it seems to be always at the last minute, and it's always a very emotional situation. I always coach my agents that if they have nothing else to do in a transaction, it would be to keep the emotion out of the deal, to keep the clients calm, and certainly as an agent, not get emotional, because that's normally the kiss of death.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. Like we were saying earlier, sometimes it's only cleaning. You're getting ready, the buyer's arriving, seller is in the middle of moving, and the place really looks pretty shabby. Well, if you go after the seller, they're just going to get aggravated, and they can't do it at that point. The buyer's got to arrive, so that we have all ended up in a point where we're racing through a place, trying to get it clean, bringing a cleaning person in that we're paying. Don't you think, Dean? Doing everything we can do to make the deal close.
Absolutely, and that's probably a more typical example of what happens in the end of these deals. I just had a case where I had spent 2 weekends ago, I spent the whole weekend staining a client's lanai furniture. And a lot of these things happen because you can't get people to pay attention to the small little issues and the small problems. No one wants to deal with it, and so that's where we end up stepping up a lot and taking care of stuff. So I'm a professional lanai furniture painter.
Did you get Troy helping with that?
I did try to get Troy helping, but he told me that he had finals going on, so he was not able to.
Oh, that's his son.
He's a smart kid.
We could get Troy out there to do almost anything. He's a great helper.
I also had another good example. I don't know if it's applicable or not, but I had this just hilarious experience with Gary Shandling, the comedian, and we got stuck on a small lanai in a condo that we were looking at. We both went onto the small lanai, about 6 by 6 feet, and as we both stepped out, the door closed and locked, and it was quite hilarious. He's a hilarious guy anyway, good comedian, and we were stuck up on the 2nd floor of this apartment, trying to decide whose obligation it was to jump off the 2nd story. And I abandoned all ethical and moral obligations and tried to get him to jump off, but he wouldn't. And we ended up figuring it out, but it was quite a funny story.
Okay, who jumped off?
I ended up jumping off. I did end up jumping off.
Yeah, that's funny. I had a similar experience at the Ironwoods at Kapalua, but I walked out myself. I was at the unit and I was just getting it all opened up to get ready to show it. So step out on the lanai, door closes behind me, and I can see the golf course, so there's a lot of people out there, and I see one of the pros coming along, and I'm shouting to him, could you get someone to come around? And this predates cell phones. And he's looking at me and waving and laughing, You know, so it took me forever to actually find someone that would go and get the manager to come around and open the door. Someone had to walk in and open it.
They just thought you were a friendly guest.
Yeah, they thought I was just, you know, kind of being friendly there. But it does seem like we've had all sorts of circumstances like that, or things that happen in the real estate world.
Yes.
That are either funny or tragic or difficult, or well, what happened with you had a transaction that somebody had bought sight unseen based on a video.
Right.
What happened with that?
Right, that just has to be one of the classic real estate stories of all time. I'd sold a house actually at Pineapple Hill. It was a pretty big deal, like a $2 million sale. The people were from Oregon. They'd never seen the property before. They knew the area, but they'd never seen this home. I'd sent them multiple detailed videos of the home, so they sort of knew what they were getting into. And they came in 3 days prior to closing for their final sign-off. And they walked into the house, they went downstairs and looked around a little bit. I was following them up the stairs to go upstairs for the first time ever. And he was halfway up the stairs, and all of a sudden there was this loud crash, and a bucket of water came down and completely drenched him. So I could still remember the look on his face, absolute shock. But what had happened was the air conditioning hadn't been maintained, and there was an air handler directly above the stairway, and it happened to be the final drop of condensation that caused the drip pan to tip over and flood out a great buyer who hadn't seen the house yet. So talk about behind the 8 ball and some desperate scrambling to keep that deal together. But fortunately he was a pretty savvy guy and recognized the problem wasn't a big deal and ended up closing. But well, that was a bit of an interesting curveball there.
Again, another case though where how do you keep your cool when the person you've been selling this house to gets drenched with water and you also have no clue where it came from? Fortunately, I think the buyer kind of got it probably before you did, that it's an air conditioning issue. Yeah,
he's an engineer. You've had it figured out within minutes, but it had to be one of the funniest looks on someone's faces that I've ever seen.
That is pretty good. Hey, Dean, you want to take a look at some of our listings? You know how we've been doing the Betty's Quick Picks? Yes. Today we'll have the Dean Quick Picks.
Yes, I have a couple of great new listings to briefly chat about here.
Oh, and celebrity listings.
Celebrity listings,
yes.
Excuse me, realtor to the celebrities. I listed a phenomenal property in Malaya. It's a 1 acre oceanfront parcel in amongst a whole bunch of those condominiums along that stretch of beach in Malaya. There's a 1 acre parcel with a small home on it, and this home is literally 20 steps away from the ocean. It's completely been rebuilt and is in amazing condition. It's a phenomenal property, listed for sale right now for $8 million. It's a unique property because of its potential for condominium in the future, being in and amongst a bunch of condominiums there, and the state designation is currently a condominium designation.